So it should post today.
But for 2 weeks?
So 2 weeks is the Q&A. If there isn't much Q&A, then it's like 4 weeks.
Hey, Dan.
This is the spot.
Okay, let's go. 2 o'clock. Ready?
I am ready. Okay, we're about ready to get started. I'm not sure if everyone can see or not, but this is our first town hall meeting from DTS. We're excited to have everyone on the call with us. Actually, on the video conference, we're excited to kind of share the information that we have and maybe answer some of the questions that are floating around out there. I hope everybody is able to connect and see this. If not, we're recording it. We'll post it later, so spread the word that it will be out there, and we'll be able to share the information best we can as we move forward on the information we have. So with that, I just want to jump into some of the things that we know. There are some things we still don't know, and hopefully this will help as we move forward in understanding what's important to everyone, and again, how to disseminate that information most effectively. So first of all, many of you may or may not have heard that the state office building is coming down. And so it's exciting that this is happening. The layout of the hill has always been to improve the space here and to make it a place where the people can come to conduct state government. And the state office building has served its purpose, and now they've found an opportunity to find the money to revamp it, lower it down a little bit, and creating a new building, most like the east and west buildings, and then also move some of the folks off the hill to relieve some of the congestion, allowing the people to come in and do the people's work. So with that, here's what we know. The Department of Admin Services is moving in January. They're hopefully wrapping things up. They'll be packing. It's going to take some effort by desktop support and some folks, many folks, to help move them, but they will move early, sometime again in January before session is the important thing. They're trying to relieve congestion by this legislative session, and so that will occur in probably the middle to the latter part of January, but before session starts. And so we're coordinating with Capital Desktop, and network and phone to make sure that DAS, that move goes smoothly, wanting to make sure that they just transition from Capitol Hill to the American Express building, and hopefully that'll go very smoothly. We also know that agriculture will move next summer, and that's going to be another heavy lift from DTS's perspective to get the folks out of the ag building over to the American Express building. That will occur sometime in the summer. And then other agencies will be moving out of the state office building by the end of the year, by the end of next year, after these other two agencies move. And DTS will be moving sometime at the end of that calendar year as well. We will probably be towards the end of all of the agencies moving out of here. We'll probably be the last ones left here, turning off the lights as we walk out of here. But what that means is all of the office space here in the state office building will be gone. The building is coming down, so even the antennas on the roof have to find a new home. And so that means that we will all be relocated, those that are in the state office building, out to the American Express building, and that's towards the end of next year. I would guess before legislative session of the next year, which probably means December timeframe, something like that. It's still a little up in the air as to the firm dates. But what that means is that the data center can stay behind. They can start knocking down this building with the data center where it is and start building the new building in this space with the data center as we work on moving the assets we have there into the American Express data center or to other areas, even the cloud. So we'll have more of that information coming as we learn about it. We don't know exactly what the floor plan looks like in the new space, For DTS employees, we don't have that yet. We don't even know exactly where in the building we'll occupy, but we do know that there will be differences. There will be changes from what we're used to today. And I know that's always brings about some angst. I'm looking forward to the new opportunities. I think, people have talked about different ways of collaborating, different ways of working. We'll have a lot more of a telecommuting initiatives in place. So there may be some hotel space mixed in our space. They're still working out all of those kinds of details. I know they've worked out some color schemes and things like that. They had some votes on that, but as far as the floor plan, what the cubicles look like, where they are, that's all still being worked on. The architect's working on that with DFCM. They've got some groups, some working groups together to talk about those things, and we'll let you know in our next meeting as we learn about it. The one nice thing about this is there will be plenty of parking. There is, if you've been out to the American Express building, there is a very large parking lot, and I think it will accommodate all of our needs for some time. And as they improve mass transit in that space, I think it will really cater to the needs of parking, which up here on Capitol Hill, many people know that parking sometimes is very difficult, especially during legislative session, days, interim days, that kind of thing. So I know that DFCM is working with UTA to improve transportation. Many of folks that commute, your commute will change, obviously. I know mine will. I worked in the Capitol for a long time, and now that I've moved here to the state office building, I almost cut my commute in half. And so going from the state office building to the American Express building will really certainly be a different commute for me, but some of the things that I need to work out personally. And I know we'll all have those challenges, but we'll figure those out. With that, it means that UTA and DFCM are working together to improve the transportation from tracks along 2700 West, or even the buses around that area. There's the Calampton building nearby, so there are many state employees already that would be adjacent to that. And so they're working on improved transit areas through that corridor so that many of the commutes will be very similar to what we would expect. Now, does that mean you can just get off of Front Runner right there? Probably not. Of course, the rail doesn't go through there. But there may be opportunities, as I've heard actually that Taylorsville City was evaluating, somebody's going to install some software, that Taylorsville City is working on some plans to bring tracks down 2700 West. So it could be one change from Front Runner to tracks that would take you right in front of the American Express building. But that's still a little ways out for some of those that are planning on working with the state for a long time. That may happen in your lifetime, but there's going to be a lot of challenges there. But let's work on the best way that we can to find the right commute, as well as working with UTA and DF. I think we can get there. The cafeteria in the building, don't know what the plan is yet on what that looks like. I know they're shutting down the cafeteria here on Capitol Hill. That's been shut down now for some months, but the cafeteria in the building will likely be stood up, but we don't know what that looks like. We don't know. It's going to be kind of grab and go kinds of things, a full-blown cafeteria. There's a lot yet to be determined. So anyway, that's what I know about the new space in the new American Express building. As far as the data center move, we currently have an RFP going out. It may post today to help us plan and manage that move, just to make sure that we don't miss something and that we can do it as efficiently as possible. We have an aggressive timeline that we're trying to move out by December 2021. Which means that there's a lot of work that needs to go into this over the course of the next few months, even as we start mapping out what needs to move, what dependencies are there, those kinds of things. And so we want to make sure that that is done effectively. And so we're bringing on this consultant to help us do that. So after we bring on that consultant, after the RFP closes, we'll begin working on that plan and a better strategy. And we'll see that materialize. kind of we've just had some cursory thoughts and meetings on it, and that's what led us to this RFP. But we've been working on it quite extensively to make sure that, again, there's no downtime. We may fail systems over to Richfield and then back to the new data center. We may vMotion things out of our data center to Rex, new blade centers in that data center. Lots of things in play, but those are the kinds of things we need to map out and get very specific on the details. And we'll let you know as soon as we hear more about that. Certainly this data center is moving. They've got some future plans for that. There's actually a capital master plan that technically shows that building doesn't even exist. It's just a new building here, and that becomes more of a feature on Capitol Hill for the people to gather. We'll see if that continues that way, or if in fact they leave the building without servers in it. It could be even storage. I hear there's maybe a museum in the new building that will occupy the state space where the state office building is. So I hear that they may store art in there temporarily. Lots of things in play there, but in any case, the data center will move into the new American Express data center. As part of that, you should know that the new data center, the American Express building, is much smaller than our current data center. So we will need to be much more efficient with our space. We do have some empty space in our current data center, but hopefully it will just be able to migrate most effectively and shrink and compress into the spaces it needs to. Architects are currently working on that, modeling the new space. We gave them the requirements for how many racks, and it looks like it does fit with our existing space, but without a lot of elbow room, as you can imagine. So that's kind of what we know about the data center move. And what we're hoping is that even as we're talking now, if you'd like to post questions to that form that Stephanie has sent out, we'll try and even get to them as we're going through some of the questions that have already been submitted. And I'll try and go through those. And if you want to submit something now, maybe we can get to that before the end of this webinar. And let's see where we go. And so in any case, with that, please send in your questions. And I'm going to just start reading through the ones that we already have. So the first question is there a core team that is planning the move? Just want to know who I coordinate with. Yes, there is a core team. Please coordinate with your managers. We have lots of your traditional methods of how you would coordinate any type of technology. And also, if you have questions, you can still use this form, getting everyone together. We have a weekly meeting. And so if you can get those questions up through the right channels, they can come to our weekly meeting. This is our number one priority for DTS right now. And so we can discuss the questions or any migration plans or questions you have. And so get those to us. The next question is, I'm concerned about our new workspace and they'll be visually and audibly distracting. That's a great question. They're still working on many of the spaces. The workspaces are going to be different than they are today. I just don't know yet how they will look. I do know that they will look the same throughout the building from agency to agency. They're trying to push the telecommuting initiative. They'll have pods or quiet areas that you can go to if your common work area is too noisy or too distracting. You can go to those for these private phone calls, or at least to have phone calls. Hopefully that we will be able to accommodate all of the needs there, but it will be different than it is today, likely. Sorry. So another question, why can't most of the DTS folks move to the new office and leave the data center where it is? That will be the case. We will move the core folks out of the state office building, leave the data center where it is temporarily until it moves to the new American Express building, which wasn't an option for us to stay where it is currently. We are looking at the new space in the American Express building, the new data center, and again, it looks like it's functioning today. American Express is using it, and it will be we'll make it work with what we need to, as well as keeping the current functions running. So in any case, state office building will be torn down as part of that. Next question, is there electric vehicle charging stations? And if so, will they be free like they are here at the Capitol? I do know this. I know that the governor said in the State of the State that he would install many more charging stations at every state facility. I don't know for sure that that's the case at the American Express building, but I can tell you that that was what the governor's initiative was. And I do know that they just installed 4 more across the street from the Capitol at the Travel Council building, and those are also free. That was the initial goal. Whether or not that happens when we move to the American Express building, I don't know, but likely I hear that they're planning on charging there. My daughter uses it here on the hill all the time when she's here, so I hope so. I think that, yeah, vehicle charging is important. I know many of you are accustomed to plugging in here at the Capitol, and that's the hope when we get to the new American Express building as well. There a question about mass transit, whether or not Front Runner will be able to take a bus to and from the Front Runner station. That's a great question. Again, we're working with DFCM, coordinating with DFCM, who in turn is coordinating with UTA to manage the transit issues for all of those that are moving into the American Express building. Just want to make sure that that is as smooth as possible going forward. So, right, and like I said too, Taylorsville City, I saw some plans early on where it showed the the tracks running down 2700 West, looping back around to Salt Lake Community College. Where right now the the tracks terminates at the West Valley City offices, and instead will come all the way down and 2700 West, loop back around to Salt Lake Community College. And also saw a plan which included, because of those lanes that would be displaced by Front Runner going down 2700 West, there would be a frontage road behind the DFCM, or excuse me, the American Express UDOT buildings along the freeway. So interesting how some of those future plans will play out. I don't know exactly, but hopefully we can manage some of those mass transit issues that you're worried about. Again, another question about public transportation. I think that's the same thing. Some of the questions about the data center virtual machines and whether or not the network IP addresses will need to be changed. We don't know that yet. I have a feeling it may not need to be, but I don't know yet. We'll have to see how that goes. Key infrastructure such as DNS, AD, Utah ID, will they go down during the move? No, we want to keep everything up as much as possible. There may be a system or two that goes down if it's physical and has to be moved. That may go down, but all of those core services will, of course, need to be maintained during the move, and that's a priority for DTS going forward. Let's see, another question about public transportation. It seems to be that's a huge concern. And again, just to reassure, we're working with DFCM, who's working with UTA. We'll hopefully get you there. Well, this actually to cross 2700 West on foot. That's a great question. I don't know what that looks like. Hopefully they've made accommodations for those employees at the Calampton building and at the Department of Health, the health lab there. Hopefully they made accommodations, but we'll have to ask about that as well. Thank you for that question. Let's see, there's a question about data center move funding. Yes, the legislature is committed to this, and they've approved most of the funding, not all. There is a legislative session coming up, and this is a priority. As a matter of fact, how I heard about this move was in the very first day of last legislative session. Both the speaker and the president said that this building was coming down. And so I know that the commitment is at the very highest levels with the legislature, who I anticipate will fund any request to move off of Capitol Hill. I know that they will be very interested in funding those. Will DTS employees at the Calampton Complex ever be expected to move to the new facility? That's a great question. I don't think that's the case, but I don't know. I'd say we do an evaluation of what the space looks like where you're at. I know there's needs to be support there in the Calampton Complex. I don't want to disrupt too much, but if it makes sense to move, then we would do that. I would anticipate that there would be folks in the Calampton building to support those individuals there. So again, we need to make some plans as going forward on that. Let's see, this last question I have is, would be flexible on everyone's cube? There will be some flexibility. However, the very first swipe at this will be very standardized, very similar to how we've done things now. It's more efficient to have some standard, if I can say, use the term cookie cutter kinds of cubes. It's very efficient and less expensive that way. If there are individual needs, those can be addressed and looked at. But with that, that's kind of where I see that going. And with that, I don't know if there are any other questions. We have a couple more. So do you have those?
Yeah. Will there be any changes to the network design as a result of the move?
There will likely be some changes to the network design. The question is, sorry, will there be any changes to the network design? I've got some engineers in here nodding, and network engineers, and I think so. I know that between the Capitol and the American Express building, we'll have to have a very robust connection to accommodate the two systems as we're migrating between our data center here on the hill to out to the American Express building. What that looks like after that is a good question, but I do anticipate that our network operations center will be moved out to the American Express building, as well as many network connections that will flow in and out of there, again, to put those connections close to our data center.
Let's do one more.
Okay, one more question.
Do we have another name to call this new space other than the American Express building?
The question is, do we have another name to call a new space other than the American Express building? You know, it's funny because I've just taken it upon myself to drive by as often as I can. And I look up from the freeway and I can see the American Express building. I drive around through the parking lot where it says not to drive into, by the way. And look at the American Express signage. Yes, it will be different. Not sure what it will be called. If you want to submit some ideas, we'll float those up to DFCM and maybe have some recommendations with DFCM. And so, okay, any other questions? Okay, so with that, we'll try and do a regular cadence with these town halls. Hopefully we can get the information out to everyone as it comes in, and we can find an opportunity to share what we know as soon as we can. I know that there's a lot of angst around this, and I certainly appreciate that. But hopefully we'll find the ways to make it work. And again, thank you to everyone for what you do. We constantly are recognized in the state of Utah for the great efforts of everyone here at DTS, and I appreciate that. And hopefully with this transition to the new building, whatever it's called, it will be just a great experience to continue the great efforts and things that we do here in DTS. So with that, thank you. We'll send out another meeting when we know a little more, and but I want at least to get this information out to everyone as we know it. All right. Well, with that, thanks. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time.